Hi everyone! So for this lecture video, we will be tackling or dun na tayo sa Unit 2, which is the different aspects of the self. For this unit, we will be emphasizing the aspects within ourselves or kung papaano ba nagkakaugnay-ugnay or nagiging connected yung iba't ibang aspeto nung pagkatao natin mismo. Kasi nung Unit 1 pa lang natin or doon sa mga naunang lessons natin, we focused on the perspective of self. So, iba't ibang perspective kung papaano natin madedefine yung self. Pero dito naman, iba't ibang aspeto kung papaano natin nabubuo yung mga sarili natin. For our first lesson, we will be tackling naman about the sexual self or unfolding the sexual self of an individual. So kapag sinabi po nating sexual self, this pertains to our gender, syempre, sa kung ano yung sex natin talaga, kung ano yung binigay sa atin na gender, kasi di ba iba yung gender and yung sex, and syempre, magfo-focus din tayo doon sa sexual connection or sa sexual connectedness natin to other individuals, may it be opposite or same sex. Ayan, so para mas maging malinaw sa atin kung ano ba si sexual self, this is a vital aspect of one's identity and encompasses the biological, physical, emotional, and social domains. Ayun nga, katulad nung sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, yung sexual self kasi natin, hindi lang siya tumutukoy sa kung ano ba yung nasa reproductive system natin or kung anong reproductive organ natin. That is more than that. Syempre, depende yan sa kung papaano natin nakikita or tinitignan yung sarili natin or pwede rin na sa kung papaano natin nire-represent or pine-present yung sarili natin sa ibang tao and kung papaano tayo nagkakaroon ng connection to others. So, madami tayong pwedeng iba't ibang factors na i-consider kung paano natin na-classify or na-identify yung sexual selves natin. While it is initially rooted in the distinguishing physical attributes found in men, the penis, and the women, the vagina, bodily transformations and development of secondary sexual characteristics during adolescence would eventually trigger physiological responses leading to beliefs and behavior associated with sex. So, yun nga po, nakakapag-create tayo ng sarili nating perception, pwedeng sarili nating interest, or pwedeng sarili nating pananaw sa kung ano yung sex or kung papaano natin ma-explore or ma-discover yung sex natin as an individual. And syempre, in relation na rin to others. First, we will go on with the biology of sex. So first, we have the anatomical sex or the biological sex or physical sex of an individual. This is comprised of things such as genitals, chromosomes, hormones, body hair, and more. But one thing it's not, gender. So, yung anatomical sex po natin, for example, you have penis or you have vagina, ganyan, it cannot determine or hindi niya matutukoy specifically kung ano yung gender natin as an individual because gender is fluid. Madami po tayong pwede maging gender kahit na meron kang penis, 'di ba? Hindi naman automatically na ang gender mo is straight na man ka na talaga. So, yun po yung ibig sabihin natin sa anatomical sex na hindi porke yan yung reproductive organ natin or yan yung nasa reproductive system natin is kailangan ma-dictate na niya kung ano man yung magiging gender natin. Next, we have gender identity. Gender identity is your psychological sense of yourself. Who you in your head know yourself to be based on how you align or don't align with what you understand to be the options for gender. So, yung gender identity po natin is the psychological sense of ourself. Yung anatomical sex natin, this is the biological sex or the physical sex. The gender identity is the psychological sense of self of an individual, kung papaano ba natin ina-identify yung sarili natin according to our gender. So, for example, kung makikita natin dito sa image sa presentation, nandiyan siya, yung isang tao, isang individual, tapos mamimili siya kung saan siya papasok na restroom or kung saan niyang gender ma-identify yung sarili niya, kung siya ba ay male or kung siya ba ay female. So, for example, just in case na you have the anatomical sex of a man and you want to be identified as a woman or a female, ganyan, there would be no problem because that is your gender identity. Yun yung sa tingin mo, nag-identify sa'yo, doon ka, kumbaga, nararapat para sa'yo, that is the psychological sense of yourself. So, wala pong problema doon. Next, after that, we also have gender expression. So, gender expression is the ways you present your gender through your actions, clothing, demeanor, and more. Your outward-facing self, and that's interpreted by others based on gender norms. So, dito na po sa gender expression pumapasok yung gender norms or kung ano man yung standards or yung rules na sineset sa atin ng society natin. For example, simple lang, kapag lalaki ka, hindi ka pwedeng magsuot ng kulay pink. Kasi yung mga nagsusuot ng kulay pink, babae lang dapat yon. On the other hand naman, kapag babae ka, hindi ka pwedeng magsuot ng blue or hindi ka pwedeng magsuot ng para kang lalaki kasi babae ka eh. Kailangan yung suot mo, dress, ganyan, or anything that is fitted, ganyan. Kahit na hindi ka komportable. Basta dapat mukha kang babae kasi babae ka eh. So, yun yung gender norms or yun yung mga typical na nakikita natin or pwede nating mapulot, diba, sa paligid natin. On the other hand naman, when we say gender expression, ito yung paraan kung paano natin ina-express yung sarili natin. There are individuals na ang anatomical sex nila is vagina and their gender identity is female. Tapos, ang gender expression nila or ang way nila ng pag-present ng sarili nila sa ibang tao is boyish, 'di ba? Merong mga babae na kahit na straight na women sila, gusto nilang nagsusuot ng mga maluluwag na damit, oversized clothes, baggy t-shirts, ganyan. Tapos yung mga gamit nila, mostly panlalaki, ganyan. And there's nothing wrong with that kasi dun natin gustong i-express kung ano man yung gender natin. There are also individuals na nagko-cross-dress, 'di ba? Kung makikita naman natin. Ayun, so yung mga tao po na nagko-cross-dress, 'di ba? Ine-express nila yung gender nila sa ganoong paraan. And if ever na ganoon nila gustong i-express yung gender nila, there's still nothing wrong with that because it is their gender and doon nila sa paraan na yun gustong i-express kung ano man yung gender nila. Basta po kapag sinabi natin gender expression, this is how a person publicly expresses or presents their gender. So, dito po, pwedeng nagme-makeup, pwedeng kahit sa boses, pwedeng kahit sa body language, ganyan. So, iba-iba pong mga paraan kung papaano natin ma-express kung ano man yung gender natin. Very, subjective na to as an individual. Lastly, we have the sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is who you are physically, spiritually, emotionally, romantically, and emotionally attracted to based on their sex, gender identity, and gender expression in relation to your own. The manifestation of sexual orientation is not correlated to gender identity or gender expression. So, yung sexual orientation naman po, kung makikita naman natin is, ito yung sexual orientation of an individual based on sa kung kanino kayo nagkakaroon ng sexual or romantic attraction, ganyan. 'Di ba? For example, pwede tayong maging women, tapos attracted din tayo sa isa pang women, ganyan. Or pwede tayong maging man, tapos attracted pa tayo sa isang man, ganyan. So, hindi tayo limited sa male and female relationships lang. So, marami pong pwedeng maging aspects or marami pong pwedeng mga bagay na i-consider tayo in choosing our romantic partner. For example, pwedeng ikaw, straight na babae ka, tapos you will be having a relationship with a bisexual man, ganyan. So, wala naman yung problem. Or vice versa, you can be a straight man, tapos you will be having a relationship with a bisexual woman. So, depende na lang po kasi yan. Syempre, sinasabi nga natin, 'di ba, that love knows no gender. Kasi hindi naman porke love yan dapat male and female lang yung involved sa relationship. So, kahit ano pa siya, basta you feel that you are attracted or you love this person, 'di ba? Hindi naman magma-matter 'yon. Kung age doesn't matter, syempre dapat hindi rin mag-matter kung ano man yung iba pang factors na pwede naman nating kumbaga palagpasin or kumbaga hindi naman ganun kalaking bagay when it comes to love. Syempre, depende naman yun sa situation. Kapag halimbawa, married na yung tao, ganyan, tas mahal mo siya, syempre hindi na yun pwede kasi may commitment na siya sa iba. Pero kapag ganitong mga factors naman na kumbaga ano siya, hindi ganun kalaking bagay or kumbaga mas madaling maintindihan, ganyan, dapat iniintindi po natin. I don't know if you are in favor of this. Syempre, there are still some individuals na hindi sila pabor sa same-sex relationships, ganyan. Pero, di ba, it doesn't matter naman if ano yung sex ng isang tao or kung ano yung gender ng isang tao. Ang importante pa rin po is how you present yourself or kung paano mo dinadala yung sarili mo sa iba, kung wala kang nasasaktan, ganyan, kung masaya ka sa ginagawa mo, 'di ba? Yun lang naman yung importante. Always keep in mind that sexual identity and gender orientation underlie our concept of self. We express our sexuality through individuality, and our beliefs and behavioral lifestyle are based on our own perception of sexuality. So ito na nga po yung sinasabi ko. Katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, I don't know if there are individuals who are not in favor or hindi sila naniniwala sa mga relationships na involved ay mga individuals with the same sex, ganyan. Syempre po, our sexual identity and gender orientation is kumbaga part ng self natin. And syempre, yung pagbuo ng self natin is a case-to-case basis or hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na porke magkaedad tayo, ganyan, or kayo, 'di ba? Since you are students na magkakaedad kayo is you have the same perception or mindset regarding this issue. So, if ever na you cannot accept the idea, syempre, 'di ba, you still have to respect kung ano man yung idea ng ibang tao. However, while gender orientation and sexual identity are deemed to be social constructs, it is important to highlight our self-expression and moreover, become responsible in doing so. This will also translate to our beliefs about sex, gender, and behavior. So dito po, hindi na tayo about sa mainly sa gender lang ng isang tao. We are now on the sexual behavior of an individual. Syempre, when we are exploring about sexual orientation, and syempre, sexual orientation, this refers to individuals kung kanino tayo attracted, ganyan. Since you are of the legal age naman na, syempre, you sometimes would like to explore, diba, sexually, ganyan. If you will be exploring sexually, syempre, it is very important that you know na you need to be responsible regarding your behavior and your actions, lalo na kapag involved ang sex or when we say sexual intercourse, it may happen uh, during a vaginal sex, an oral sex or anal sex, ganyan. Di natin alam kung papaano nyo to ginagawa. Pero yun nga, it is very important that you are responsible in doing this. We should take note that our behavior in various situations would entail consequences. We need to realize that what are the effects of such actions and how can we regulate our own behavior, including our sexual behavior. So, dito po, sinasabi natin that our behavior, syempre, lahat naman yan, kahit nga hindi about sa sexual behaviors natin all of our behavior or kung ano man yung mga ginagawa natin sa buhay natin, meron yung kaakibat na rewards and consequences. Syempre, if you are working hard or if you are doing something that is positive or good, ganyan, you will be rewarded. And on the other hand, if you are doing something that is prohibited or bawal, ganyan, or kumbaga hindi pa pwede or hindi mo ginawa ng tama, ganyan, there are accompanying consequences or merong mga kapalit kung ano man yung mga actions mo. Kahit na sumaya ka pa or kahit na gusto mo yung ginawa mo, basta hindi tama kung ano yung ginawa mo or may mali kang nagawa on the process, di ba? Merong pwedeng maging kapalit yon para sa'yo. And syempre, we have to be mindful and knowledgeable about the possible effects of these certain behaviors. And syempre, as an individual, we need to learn how to regulate or to control our own behaviors para at least, di ba, we will not be facing a lot of consequences in the future. And syempre, baka yung consequences na yon is too much for us to handle at baka hindi natin kayanin. So, mas maganda na nasa una pa lang, 'di ba? Alam na natin or knowledgeable na tayo kung ano man yung pinapasok natin or kung ano yung ginagawa natin para at least ready tayo para doon sa mga kaakibat na consequences ng mga actions na yon. So let's now proceed on the consequences of sexual choice. Sexual intercourse, also known as copulation, is the reproductive act wherein the male organ or the penis enters the female's reproductive tract or the vagina. Teenage couples who engage in sexual intercourse or premarital sex are usually overwhelmed by the sensations they feel during the act. So dito po, sa consequences of sexual choice, yun nga po, when we are pertaining to sexual intercourse, hindi lang ito yung vaginal intercourse. This can be done through oral or anal intercourse, and hindi lang po din ito ginagawa ng male and female. This is also done by male to male or female to female. Hindi po siya namimili ng gender. Wala pong pinipiling gender ang isang sexual intercourse. So, teenage couples or teenage individuals who engage in sexual intercourse are engaging in premarital sex. So, when we define premarital sex, this is a kind of sexual intercourse or an act that is done by individuals who are not yet married. Kaya po siya premarital because when we say marital, this refers to marriage or being married. And yung pre, syempre, ibig sabihin nun before or bago. So, nag-sex na kayo, bago pa kayo ikasal, therefore, you are engaging with premarital sex. Teenagers or adolescents are usually overwhelmed by the sensations or kung ano man yung nararamdaman nila na excitement or kung ano man yung kumbaga pleasure na nafe-feel nila during the act or the sexual intercourse. Kaya ang tendency po nito when na-experience na ng isang tao ito, 'di ba? Hindi niya na mapipigilan na gawin pa ito ulit or to commit the act again because of the pleasure or the sensations that they feel on doing it. Pero yun nga, babalikan natin yung sinabi ko kanina na there are instances na kapag meron tayong mga bagay na ginawang mali or meron tayong mga maling ginawa on the process of doing something, 'di ba? Kailangan we are ready to face the consequences or kahit papano, bago natin gawin, pag-isipan muna natin ng 10 beses kung kaya ba nating harapin kung ano man yung mga kapalit ng mga bagay na ginagawa natin. Kasi syempre, kapag nagawa na natin yun, hindi na natin pwedeng baguhin yun or hindi na natin pwedeng ibalik yung oras. Tapos, babaguhin natin kung ano man yung naging actions natin, 'di ba? Wala naman kasing mga tao na nagsisi sa umpisa, 'di ba? Lahat ng mga tao na merong pagsisisi is nalaman na lang nila na nagsisisi na sila because hindi na nila kayang ibalik yung oras or hindi na nila kayang itama kung ano man yung nagawa nilang pagkakamali. Syempre, we have different consequences because of our own sexual choices. First, we have early pregnancy. Early pregnancy happens when an individual or syempre a female becomes pregnant at an early age or kahit na medyo may edad na siya or medyo matanda na siya or nasa legal age na siya pero nandun pa siya sa part ng buhay niya na hindi pa siya ready na mabuntis or hindi pa siya ready na mag-alaga ng isang tao or ng isang bata. Ganyan. There are physical risks to having an early pregnancy that may impact on an adolescent's development. So, yung pong mga babae kasi, lalo na kapag teenagers pa lang, hindi pa fully developed yung reproductive system nila and yung katawan nila. So, ang nangyayari po dyan is, habang nagde-develop pa lang yung katawan ng babae, so, mai-interrupt yun kasi ang nangyari, nabuntis siya ng maaga. Kaya most of the times, kung makikita nyo, yung mga babae na nabuntis ng maaga, merong mga nabubunge, ganyan, or merong mga nalalagasan ng buhok, or yung iba naman, pumapayat, ganyan, nadadry yung skin, mabagsak yung mata, kasi po, kinukuha ng baby yung nutrients na kailangan niya. Syempre, para ma-nurture niya yung sarili niya or para mabuhay siya. And since hindi pa fully developed yung babae, para makapagdala ng isang bata, 'di ba? Hindi pa siya ganoon ka-develop para maging ina, yun nga, hindi pa ready yung katawan niya. So nako-compromise yung health nung babae. Aside from that, pati yung mismong reproductive organ ng isang babae, hindi pa siya ready na mag-conceive ng isang bata, ganyan. Kaya most of the times, ang nangyayari is pwedeng possible na magkaroon ng sakit, ganyan, or malaglag or mahirapang manganak, ganyan. So, madaming pwedeng consequences yung early pregnancy sa babae pa lang ha, hindi pa kasama yung sa lalaki. Tapos, aside from that, syempre, pati yung emotional stress na nararamdaman ng isang babae since yun nga hindi pa siya ready, tapos magbabago yung katawan niya because of the pregnancy, mababago yung hormones, ganyan. Kapag kasi nagkaroon ng significant changes sa hormones, hindi mo na makokontrol kung ano yung nararamdaman mo or kung ano yung mga pwede mong masabi or kung ano yung pwede mong gawin, ganyan. So, ang isang babaeng buntis, para siyang laging isang babae na merong menstruation. Ayun, kasi yung hormones niya nasa peak talaga. Or minsan naman, sobrang saya ng buntis, tas minsan bigla na lang iiyak, minsan bigla na lang magagalit, ganyan. Because of the significant changes in the hormones of a pregnant. Next naman po, syempre, is the risks na nai-impose or pwede nating maibigay doon sa infant natin or doon sa anak natin. Syempre, with regards to the risk na pwede nating maibigay sa anak natin, yun nga, pwede kasing mag-lead sa miscarriage, ganyan, kapag hindi naalagaan ng maayos, pwedeng malaglag yung bata, 'di ba? Wala siyang kamuwang-muwang or wala siyang kaalam-alam, tapos ayun, mawawala siya sa mundo because of the unpreparedness or the unreadiness of an individual. Tapos, aside from that, pwede rin magkaroon siya ng mga neurocognitive disorders or neurodevelopmental disorders, ganyan. Pwedeng magkaroon ng hydrocephalus, pwedeng magkaroon ng um, autism or ADHD, ganyan. Depende sa kung ano yung actions ng mother habang nagbubuntis siya because most of these are kumbaga genetically acquired. So for example, you are on an intake of a substance, nag-iinom, nag-yosi, nakakaamoy ng yosi, or kung ano man habang nagbubuntis, meron po yung significant effect doon sa bata sa sinapupunan natin. And syempre, aside from the effects doon sa babae, syempre hindi natin maiiwasan na magkaroon yun ng effect sa lalaki. Though, iba yung effect, hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin na hindi sila naaapektuhan. Merong mga tao na hindi naaapektuhan because tinatakbuhan nila yung nabuntis nila. Pero para sa mga tao na handa silang panindigan yung mga nabuntis nila or kung sino man yung napangasawa nila, ganyan. Syempre, ang magiging effect po nun sa kanila is the pressure that they need to provide for the pregnant and syempre para doon sa magiging anak nila. Aside from that, syempre, since teenage pregnancy ito, most probably teenager din yung tatay, so ang mangyayari po dyan is masasacrifice din yung education nung babae or nung lalaki on the process kasi syempre hindi naman pwedeng mag-aral yung babae habang malaki yung tiyan niya or nagbubuntis siya, ganyan, di ba? Merong mga mangilan-ngilan na gumagawa niyan pero hindi lahat nagagampanan yan. And on the other hand, syempre, because of the need to provide nung lalaki para dun sa anak niya tsaka dun sa napangasawa niya, syempre, may mga instances or may mga sitwasyon na kailangan ding tumigil nung lalaki sa pag-aaral. Pero syempre, this will be a completely different story if financially stable or kahit papano is merong kaya yung family ng babae or ng lalaki. Though iba yung kwento or though merong mga ibang mga mangyayari, 'di ba, doon sa buhay nila because of that factor. For example, mayaman sila or for example, may pera naman yung pamilya nila. It will not change the fact na nagkaroon ng pregnancy ng medyo maaga or kumbaga yung dapat sana na mangyayari pa 3 or siguro 5 or 10 years from now, nangyari na siya ngayon. So, ang sinasabi ko po lang dito is yung gagawin natin ngayon, as of this moment, is hindi pa mangyayari yung consequence niyan 3, 5, or 10 years after. Kung hindi, mangyayari na yung consequences niyan ngayon. So, kung gusto po natin ng, syempre, ng maayos na, kumbaga, buhay at the present, or gusto po nating matupad yung mga pangarap natin at the present, we have specific goals at the present, syempre, kailangan po nating makontrol or ma-regulate kung ano man yung gusto nating mga gawin at the present time. Syempre, aside from early pregnancy and kung ano yung mga sinabi ko na possible consequences kanina, 'di ba? Another consequence of your sexual choices or involving in a sexual intercourse is sexually transmitted infection, syempre. Sexually transmitted infections are infections that are transmitted through sexual intercourse. That's why it is called sexually transmitted infection. A condition passed from one person to another through sexual intercourse. You can acquire this by doing unprotected vaginal, anal, or oral sex with someone who has the infection. Treatment of these diseases may entail medication and in some cases surgery. However, these are kumbaga the minimal effects of the disease or the infection. There are cases when these diseases are affecting the reproductive functions of an individual. For example, pwedeng hindi ka na makabuntis or pwedeng hindi ka na mabuntis, ganyan. Or pwede namang mag-result to death. Ayan. So, depende po, syempre, sa magiging sexually transmitted infection natin, kung ano yung magiging consequence nun para sa atin. Basta po, sexually transmitted infections are infections that are transmitted through sexual intercourse. Syempre, most especially, or highlight ko lang na mas nangyayari po ito when we are performing or when we are engaging to unprotected sex. For example, you are not using condoms. Yan. So, syempre, kapag nakikipag sexual intercourse kayo, kapag hindi kayo gumagamit ng protection, nagkakaroon ng direct contact with your organs and syempre hindi natin alam, 'di ba, kung sino yung mga naging sexual partner pa nung tao na meron tayong engagement o sexual intercourse. So, through that, pwede tayong makapag-acquire ng iba't ibang klase ng infection. We have different types of sexually transmitted infection. Siyempre, I will be discussing a few of the types. Hindi ko kasi sure kung ito na lahat yon, pero ito lang kasi yung alam ko, at ito yung kaya kong maibigay sa inyo na information. Ito yung mga pinaka-common na sexually transmitted infection na pwedeng ma-acquire ng kahit sino basta nag-engage tayo sa sexual intercourse, lalo na bigyan ko ulit ng emphasis, if you are engaging with it unprotected. And also, just a warning for everyone, since this is an educational video, I added pictures or images of kung ano yung itsura nung mga infection kapag, for example, nagkaroon yung isang tao ng infection na to. So, ayun, if ever na kumakain kayo habang nanonood nitong video na to, wag nyo munang ituloy. Pwede nyo namang ituloy mamaya after nyo kumain. Or, ayun, handa nyo lang yung mga sarili nyo for the images. So, first type of infection is the chlamydia. This is a product of an infection with Chlamydia trachomatis. It is an ordinary infection that can pass through anal, vaginal, and oral sex. If symptoms do occur, they may include a change in vaginal discharge and burning pain during urination. So, masakit yung pakiramdam kapag umiihi. Tapos, yung vaginal discharge ng babae pwedeng may amoy or iba yung kulay. A pregnant woman can also transmit it to the baby during the delivery. The chlamydia does not usually produce symptoms, but it can cause infertility and other complications if the carrier does not take treatment for it. It can prevent the infections or yung infection na ito ay mapipigilan sa paglala with early treatment. Or syempre, kapag maagang napansin or kumbaga na-diagnose na ito pala yung infection ng isang tao. Ito pong infection na to is nagkukos ng infertility. So, pag sinabi natin nagkukos ng infertility, mataas yung chance na hindi na mabuntis yung isang babae or hindi na makabuo because of this sexually transmitted infection. So, if ever na napapansin natin to sa mga sarili natin, syempre, we should get ourselves treated para at least hindi na siya lumala and at least hindi na tayo makahawa if we are, kumbaga, having sexual engagement to another individual. Next, we have crabs or pubic lice. This can be found on the pubic hair or doon sa hair sa mga private part ninyo. Sometimes they can spread in different hair of the body, such as in the armpits, mustache, beard, eyelashes, or eyebrows. They are very small and difficult to see, but a person will notice itching in the areas they affect. So, very makate yung pakiramdam kapag meron kayong pubic lice. Ayan, because mararamdaman mo siya or madedetect mo siya dahil, yun nga, may itchy doon sa private part mo. Pubic lice can transfer from person to person during intimate physical contact, including sexual contact. So, itong sexually transmitted infection na to, pwedeng mapasa sa'yo to kahit walang actual na sexual intercourse, kahit na magkadikit lang kayo, since nabanggit nga dito na pwede ring magkaroon ng pubic lice, yung iba't ibang mga buhok sa katawan ng tao. For example, buhok sa kilikili, kilay, pilik mata, bigote, balbas, yan. So, kahit saan, basta may buhok, ayun, pwedeng magstay si pubic lice. They can also be passed via shared towels or bed linen. So, for example, gumamit kayo or nag-share kayo ng isang tuwalya or nag-share kayo sa kama, sa kumot, sa unan, ganyan, or anything. Basta pwedeng dumapo yung lies na yan, ayun, pwede siyang mapasa sa'yo. And, syempre, 'di ba, you need to get yourself treated kapag meron ka nito kasi 'di ba, this can affect your physical, kumbaga, physical state. And if ever, just in case na dumami itong mga lice na ito sa private area mo, syempre, this can, kumbaga, cause different infections pa for you. So, ang maganda po is, yun, siguro mape-prevent natin to if we will be having a proper hygiene. 'Di ba? Magiging malinis tayo sa mga katawan natin. I-check natin kung malinis ba tayo, ganyan. Para at least, 'di ba, hindi rin tayo makapagpasa ng infection sa ibang tao. Next is genital warts, one of the most common types of sexually transmitted infections. Nearly all sexually active individuals will become infected with at least one type of human papillomavirus or HPV, the virus that causes genital warts at some point during their lives. Genital warts affect the moist tissues of the genital area. So, yung genital warts po ay tumutubo mismo doon sa genital areas ninyo. They can look like small flesh-colored bumps or have a cauliflower-like appearance. So, ito pong genital warts is maliliit na, para siyang maliliit na kulugo na tutubo sa mga private parts ninyo. In many cases, the warts are too small to be visible. So, ibig sabihin po, yung mga warts daw ay masyadong maliit para makita ninyo. Some strains of genital HPV can cause genital warts while others can cause cancer. So, yung pong mga strain or iba't ibang klase ng human papillomavirus or HPV ay pwedeng mag-cause ng genital warts or, syempre, worst case scenario, it can give you cancer. Vaccines can help protect against certain strains of genital HPV. So, since this is a cancerous virus, so meron pong vaccine na pwede kayong kunin para at least you can prevent or you can minimize the chances of you getting infected with HPV or human papillomavirus, lalo na if you are engaging with, first, unprotected sex. Next, if you are engaging with different or multiple sexual partners. And third, syempre, if you are sexually active. Next, we have the herpes simplex virus or the HSV. This is identified into two. Meron tayong HSV1 and HSV2. HSV1 usually affects the mouth. People can contract it through saliva, or if there is a herpes-related sore around the partner's mouth, it can pass to the genital area during oral sex. So, yung unang example po ng herpes is yung HSV1 na nasa bibig. Ayan, kung makikita po natin sa image, di ba, meron dyan na nasa bibig. So, syempre, because nasa bibig siya, it can be transferred through kissing, ganyan, if ever na infected na yung isa with HSV1. Tapos, syempre, it can be also transferred through oral sex. Next, we have HSV2 that can affect the genital area, the anal area, and the mouth of an individual. It transmits through vaginal, oral, and anal sex. Ayan. So, yung HSV2 po, ayan, katulad ng makikita natin sa second image sa presentation, ayan, na nasa private area siya ng isang tao. The main symptom is a blister around the mouth. So, pag sinabi po natin blister, para siyang singaw or parang tigyawat na masakit, ganyan, around the mouth, the anus, sa puwet, or the genital area of an individual. These blisters can break, causing a painful sore that takes a week or longer to disappear. So, yun nga po, yun yung parang singaw nga na makikita natin sa iba't ibang parts ng katawan natin. Siyempre, specifically or most commonly sa mouth, anus, or genital area because this is a sexually transmitted infection. Doon nagkakaroon ng contact through sexual intercourse. So, dito po, yung singaw na yan or yung kumbaga sugat na yan, matagal siyang maghilom. And syempre, kapag pumutok siya, or kapag nasanggi siya, ganyan, or mababasa siya, syempre, sasakit siya. And mataas din yung chance na since infection na siya, or kumbaga madumi na siya kasi, kapag nahipo natin siya or nahawak natin siya sa iba pang parts ng katawan natin, dadami siya or magmumultiply siya on itself. Next, we have syphilis. This is another bacterial infection. It often goes unnoticed in its early stages. The first symptom to appear is a small round sore known as a chancre. It can develop on your genitals, anus, or your mouth. Ayan. So, kung makikita po natin sa syphilis, 'di ba? Kumbaga, bilog-bilog siya. Para siyang mga polka dots na sugat na tumutubo sa iba't ibang mga parts ng katawan natin. That is also caused or that is also contracted or nakukuha through sexual intercourse. So, pwede siyang ma-develop sa genitals, sa anus, or sa mouth natin. Siyempre, depende kung saan tayo nagkaroon ng contact doon sa act na pinerform natin. Lastly, we have gonorrhea, a common infection caused by the bacterium Neisseria gonorrhoeae. It is highly contagious and without treatment can lead to life-threatening complications. So this is highly contagious and if ever na hindi natin matitreat agad or hindi natin madedetect agad na meron pala kayo nito, pwede po itong mag-lead sa kumbaga diseases or other infections that may cost your life. A person can transmit gonorrhea during oral, vaginal, or anal sex. If they touch an infected area of the body and then touch their eye, gonorrhea can also lead to pink eye. So, ang delikado po dito sa gonorrhea is yung contact doon sa kung ano man yung part na infected. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo po din sa image, yung kamay nung pwedeng nung doktor or nung mismong tao na humahawak doon sa private part, merong gloves kasi nga hindi siya pwedeng ma-contact sa kung saan-saang parts ng katawan ng isang tao kasi nga dangerous talaga siya. A pregnant woman can also pass the infection to the baby during delivery. So, ganun po siya ka-delikado na, for example, you will be delivering your baby via normal delivery, natural birth, ganyan. Siyempre, yung baby is lalabas doon sa reproductive organ ng babae or sa vagina niya. So, if ever na merong infection or merong gonorrhea yung babae, ayan po yung mangyayari. Pwede ring mahawa yung baby niya. So, yung infant, magkakaroon na rin agad ng gonorrhea. Ayan. So, just a reminder lang na if ever na you are feeling or you observe the following symptoms on your body, please get yourself treated and syempre get tested na rin to protect yourself and to protect kung sino man yung mga partner ninyo. If ever lang naman na meron, if ever na wala, it is so much better na wala. Syempre, we have the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or the AIDS. This is a chronic, potentially life-threatening condition caused by the human immunodeficiency virus or HIV. So, yung AIDS po, yung acquired immunodeficiency syndrome is nabubuo or na-acquire ng isang tao because of HIV or the human immunodeficiency virus. So, ang cause ni AIDS ay si HIV. By damaging your immune system, HIV interferes with your body's ability to fight infection and diseases. So, ang ginagawa po ni HIV is pinapahina niya yung immune system ng isang tao. Siyempre, yung immune system natin, yun yung, kumbaga, ability ng katawan natin para malabanan kung ano man yung mga sakit na ma-acquire natin or magkakaroon tayo, 'di ba? HIV is a sexually transmitted infection or STI. So, yung HIV po is the sexually transmitted infection, ha? It can also be spread by contact with infected blood, or from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth, or breastfeeding. So, pwede itong mapasa, syempre, through sexual intercourse, or pwede rin sa needle. For example, natusok sa'yo yung needle ng isang tao na infected with HIV, or isang tao na meron ng virus na ganito. So, pwede ka rin magkaroon, mahahawa ka. Without medication, it may take years before HIV weakens your immune system to the point that you have AIDS. So, kapag hindi ka nagagamot or hindi protected yung katawan mo, pwedeng matagal pa bago humina ng tuluyan yung immune system mo at magkaroon ka nga nung AIDS, ma-acquire mo yung AIDS. So, as of today, there is still no cure for HIV or AIDS, but there are a lot of medications that can dramatically slow the progression of the disease. So, ito po, yung HIV or yung AIDS, wala pa siyang gamot as of now. Pero I know, sir, merong mga researches na ginagawa para mabuo or makagawa na ng gamot for HIV or AIDS. Pero there are a lot of medications, may mga gamot na tinitake yung mga tao na merong HIV para hindi na siya mapunta or hindi na siya lumala pa para maging AIDS pa, or para yun nga mag-cause ng death or fatality para sa isang tao. There are a lot of things that we can do to prevent sexually transmitted infections, since these are infections that are, kumbaga, acquired or contracted through sexual intercourse. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F. First is the abstinence from sex. When we say abstinence, this is the complete absence of sex. So, ibig sabihin, para hindi ka magkaroon ng sexually transmitted infections, huwag kang makipag-sex. Yun lang. Ganun lang kasimple. Next, if ever na hindi natin kaya yung abstinence, be faithful to your partner. So, mag-stick tayo sa isang sexual partner lang. Huwag tayong mag-engage sa mga multiple partners or multiple sexual partners para at least alam natin or knowledgeable tayo sa kung sino lang yung nakaka-contact natin sexually. Next, letter C, correct and consistent use of condoms. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, that sexually transmitted infections are mostly na-acquire ng isang tao because of unprotected sex. So, syempre, malaki yung chance, pero hindi 100% yung assurance. Malaki yung chance na ma-protect tayo sa sexually transmitted infections if we will be using condoms, kasi hindi magiging direct yung skin-to-skin contact nung genital areas ninyo kapag nagkakaroon kayo ng sexual intercourse. Syempre, iba pa rin yung protected sa unprotected. Next, letter D, do not use injectable drugs. So, huwag kayong gagamit ng injectable drugs such as, for example, meth, ganyan, or ano pa ba yung mga drugs na ini-inject. Kahit yung mga gluta, ganyan. Kasi diba, yung sexually transmitted infections nga can be passed through a needle, lalo na kapag merong HIV yung isang tao. So, para mas maprotektahan natin yung sarili natin, and syempre maprotektahan natin yung sexual partner natin, ayun, wag na lang tayong gumamit ng injectable drugs. Letter E is education. So, with proper education, kapag nilawakan natin yung isip natin sa kung ano yung mga kailangan nating gawin, yung mga dapat nating gawin, or mga dapat nating iwasan through sexual intercourse, ganyan, or kumbaga throughout the act of engaging to a sexual contact with another person or with another individual, mas magiging aware tayo doon sa kung ano yung mga kailangan nating iwasan para at least, 'di ba, ma-prevent din natin or ma-avoid natin yung undesirable or unfavorable consequences para sa atin. And lastly, F is frequent voluntary testing. So, you are aware naman na siguro na pwede rin tayong magpa-test if we are positive sa HIV, 'di ba? Para at least magkaroon ng early treatment para if ever na positive kayo with a certain virus, mabigyan kayo ng proper medication para yun nga, hindi siya mag-progress and hindi siya lumala, hindi dumating yung point na wala na kayong magawa because na-compromise na yung immune system nyo because of the infection or the virus. Ayan, so that will be all. So, these are all from my own understanding and my own knowledge regarding the subject matter. So, if ever na, kumbaga, you have questions, ganyan, you can still ask me pa rin naman, but it is better if you will be asking professionals that are really focused on this issue. Syempre, I'm not a professional naman na, kumbaga, very knowledgeable regarding this topic. I'm just sharing what I know to you regarding the topic, pero hindi ko ito forte. So, if ever na you have certain problems, ganyan, or if you are experiencing some of the symptoms, ganyan, of the said sexually transmitted infections, you can get yourself treated by a doctor para at least you will be guided properly. Ayun. So, that sums up lesson 10, sexual self. Ayun, I hope na may na-share ako sa inyo or may na-impart ako sa inyo with this lesson. And, ayun, I hope you have a nice day. Thank you!